So the standard advice to anyone who wants to get faster in their playing is to start slow, get used to the movement or the technique, and then slowly build up the speed over time, maybe use a metronome or something like that. And don't get me wrong, that really does work, and I still do that after maybe 40 years of playing. But for everyone will hit a plateau. There will come a point where slowing it down is not the approach that you need to make in order to sort of push through that plateau. So these are a couple of ideas, there's maybe 5 ideas that I use here in order to push through those kinds of plateaus. And these are applicable either if you're working on a specific phrase or whether you just want to get better with scales or something as a sort of a more generic approach, a non-specific approach. So let's zoom in and we'll make a start. So let's imagine the phrase I'm going to work on is a scale in B major. So just the 3 notes per string shape from the 7th fret upwards. So the approach really is, instead of trying to play it all the way through from start to finish, what you do is you break it down into fragments. So maybe just a 3-note fragment or a 4-note fragment or 6-note fragment, just whatever feels right. And you just drill on those to start with. And the idea here is to really start to look at the landmarks of the shape as well. So for example, I'm starting this shape, because I'm playing fingerstyle, I'm starting the shape with my thumb. I change string on my index finger, and I finish the pattern on my 3rd finger. And so I'm starting to really kind of understand how I approach playing just these 6 notes. And then I'd take another 6 notes nearby, and then start to connect the phrases up. And you continue to do that until you work all the way through the phrase. So that concept of breaking the whole phrase down into fragments and working on fragments is common to all of these approaches that I'm going to talk about. Let me show you what I mean with the next one. So this time we're going to take that same idea of splitting the entire phrase up into fragments, but this time we're going to start at the end and work back to the beginning. So the last 3 notes would be these, or maybe I'd want to work on the last 6 notes. And then there's another fragment nearby. And you continue to do that, so you start at the end and work all the way to the start again. Okay, so that concept of starting at the end and working backwards to the beginning is really quite powerful, and it's quite powerful on a number of different levels. Firstly, if you're just learning the phrase, if all you've done is played it through from the start, the chances are you'd start at the beginning, you'd work your way halfway through, you'd make a mistake, you'd rewind to the start again, and you'd have another go, maybe get a bit further, rewind to the start again. And what happens is you get very good at those opening set of notes, but the end of the phrase doesn't get the attention that it deserves. So it's a really powerful way of breaking through that and giving the end the attention it deserves. The other thing is, psychologically, if you know that you're very capable of playing the end of a phrase, then you will feel much more confident once you've started it off and are actually into it. And also from an audience perspective, the audience tends to remember what happens at the end of a performance, not at the beginning. So if you start well but end up more hesitant at the end, the audience will tend to remember how you were approaching the end. Rather than if you started hesitantly but ended well, the audience will think you played well. So being able to play the end of a piece of music, being able to play the end of a phrase really well is really quite powerful. Let's try a couple of ideas. These are more focused on non-specific phrases. So if you just wanted to get more agility over, let's say, a scale or a phrase, these are the approaches that I work on. So this time we're going to take a fragment, but instead of just playing it from the beginning to the end, we're going to loop it. So this is one of those ideas that, you know, works on a sort of a non-specific phrase. So what I'm trying to do is to just acclimatize myself to the shapes, to the issues that you have when you're playing this particular pattern, irrespective of the line you may be playing. So you're trying to just get time under the shape, get your fingers acclimatized to it. And I tend to like to add a string change if I can, because that tends to be the time when you're going to mess up, is when you change strings. So something like that would be a very common phrase for me, or a 9-note phrase. And again, you can take these ideas and move them around the neck. The idea here, again, is to just get time under the shape, get your fingers acclimatized to moving around the shape, but just in a small area. Just getting used to playing in that small area rather than trying to work your way all the way across the neck and back. Okay, so this idea of looping a fragment gives you the time under the phrase. That's the whole point of it. But it's important as well to work on phrases in isolation. So you develop the skills to start the phrase and to end the phrase as well as just looping over notes over and over again. You need both skills. Let's try the next idea. So this time we're going to take one of these looping fragments, but instead of starting with the same picking stroke as you do all the time, you vary it. So for example, if you use a pick and you always start with a downstroke, this time you're going to start with an upstroke. And just see if you can play it. And for me, because I'm fingerstyle, instead of starting the phrase with my thumb, I may start it with my index finger. And the idea is to just get time under the shape again, but just in a kind of an odd ordering, just to get used to sort of playing slightly out of sync. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're trying to vary the approach to that specific phrase or that specific pattern. If you're working on sort of non-specific lines, if you just wanted to get the hang of a scale in an improvisation or something like that, then it's important to vary the approach that you take to it, because you're not in control of how you're going to approach using that scale. You know, you'll be coming from different directions in different nights, so which is why I like to vary the phasing of the left and the right hand, so I know I'm confident irrespective of that phrasing. Let's try the last idea. So this time we're going to take that concept of a loop, but we're going to move it. So my favourite way of doing this, especially with these kinds of 9-note fragments, is to go up 3 strings, cross back 2 strings, go up 3 strings, cross back 2 strings. And then work my way back down again. And this kind of incorporates both of the previous ideas, so you have this moving idea, but you find when you start crossing the strings like this, each cycle probably will start on a different picking pattern. So if I kind of try and demonstrate, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then we start in that pattern again here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So what this is doing is using an odd number of notes, which forces me to change the phase of my picking. But it allows me again to sort of focus on one area and then move on to the next area, then move on to the next area, whilst keeping that kind of time under the pattern as well, so my fingers still acclimatise to each position. Okay, so I particularly like this approach because it starts to move me towards improvisation, because I'm not only looping the phrase, getting it under my fingers, I'm also starting to move it around the neck, which is exactly what you want to do when you're starting to improvise. And also by using these non-even numbers of notes, you're doing that variance of left and right phasing as well, which will give you that confidence to be able to approach that scale irrespective of the finger that you're using to start the line with. So I do this kind of thing a lot. So that's it, 5 ideas. Hopefully some of those will be useful for you. They all take that idea, as I say, of breaking the phrase down into fragments, so you can just drill on that fragment and develop the idea rather than trying to approach the phrase as a complete line. But give them a go, as I say, see how you get on with them, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.